Okay, everybody, the time is 6:33. The date is Wednesday, September 13th. I'd like to call this Town Board special meeting to order by asking everybody to first stand and pledge to the flag, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda, starting off with the meeting, is public comments, questions on agenda items only. If anybody has any questions or comments, please approach the podium.
I do. Hi. Good evening, everyone. Jill Fieldstein, 39 Northeast Mountain Road, Dover Plains. I'm here to talk about the agenda item of the draft solar energy legislation. I just wanted to put it on the record that the draft law was just provided to the public about 3 hours ago. I thank Katie very much for sending it to me and apparently to everyone else. But and also, Katie gave assurances that the public hearing would remain open after this hearing so that there is a meaningful opportunity for the public to look at and respond to the draft. I also wanted to say, I don't know if it was inadvertent, but the public hearing was not on the agenda until I think yesterday, maybe the day before. So I'm not sure that people even were aware that the public hearing was
It was
on
announced and posted in the way the law describes. So we announced it and scheduled it last meeting. It was posted, the date was set. So by law, we provided the proper notice.
Yes.
Agendas are a work in order. Sometimes they don't get finalized until today.
Okay. Well, I just want the record to be clear for those of us who do look at the agenda because we don't have a newspaper or anything else, that it was not on the agenda until yesterday or maybe the day before.
Point taken.
Okay, and I guess the public hearing is open today because this gentleman is going to give his presentation that he wasn't able to give.
It won't be reopened until after his presentation.
Okay.
Actually, I'm sorry, I will open it for him, yes.
All right, but, I don't...
Just for a point of clarification, the public hearing was noticed for 2 weeks ago, and it was opened, and it's been continued to be kept open. And a most recent draft of the legislation was posted to the town website, I think today, by the town clerk, because I needed to review it. And so the public hearing, every time, if the board decides to keep it open, it doesn't have to be renoticed. It's kept open. It was announced at the meeting that it was kept open, and I believe the board intends to keep it open tonight to the next meeting, so it's really a non-issue.
A non-issue except for people who look to your agendas to know what's going on. And so I just wanted to point out that for those of us who do look at the agendas, it was not on. But your point's taken, Mr. Jacobellis, and I understand it was open, but as long as it remains open so that people do have a meaningful opportunity to be heard, that would be great. Thank you.
You're Christopher? Okay. At this time, I'd like to move that we move back into public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded to move back into a public hearing. And we're going to start off with a presentation from Mr. Christopher Ross, Associate Director of Origination? Origination? Okay. He's got a short presentation that he's going to start this hearing off with, and then we'll go into discussion from there.
Set a timer here and try and stay within the 15 minutes.
It's in there, probably.
Good evening. So I'll reintroduce myself from last week. So my name is Christopher Ross. I oversee the origination department at RIC Energy. For those of you who don't know, RIC Energy is the company behind the application for the Wingdale Solar Project, which is a pending application. It is available to review on the town's website. And I would encourage anyone who is unaware of that project to check it out. We believe it's a very good location for this type of project. And part of the reason we're here tonight is because the solar law as proposed, or at least the iteration that was provided to us several weeks ago, would affect that project and essentially render the application incompliant with the law. So what we did here tonight and what we're presenting is a kind of analysis that we do regularly when we are looking to site solar projects in various towns. We take the solar law that exists, narrow down based on those requirements where we can actually site projects, and then there are additional considerations that we as a developer have to take into account: wetlands, floodplains, topography, a number of things that aren't explicit in the law, but that do affect where these projects can go. So without further ado, we'll dive in here. Let me see.
Maybe if you pointed at that device on the ceiling.
It's up here.
That's it.
That panel right up there.
It's page up and down.
Okay, I can do it from my end. If you just tell me next slide, we'll
Okay.
keep it moving. How about that?
Great. Yeah, that'd be perfect. Okay, so to start, let's look at some numbers. The town of Dover has a total of 36,027 acres of land spread across 3,274 parcels. Community solar projects, and I do want to define terms here. What you're regulating is a community solar project which is capped at 5 megawatts. 5 megawatts is the cap for the New York Incentive Program, so you're not going to get an application beyond that. And utility scale solar projects which connect to the transmission grid, really they're much larger. They are regulated through Albany, through the Office of Renewable Energy Siting. There really isn't a location in the town of Dover that is suitable for that type of project. That's 20 megawatts typically and greater. So looking at the distribution networks in Dover, which are the 3-phase lines, there are 2 networks. One in the north, which is the Dover Plains substation, and one in the south, which is the 10 Mile River substation. And what you're seeing here, these networks in red and blue, are just the 3-phase lines. There are single-phase lines that shoot out from those. But community solar projects can only connect to 3-phase distribution lines, so that's why this is important to see here. The capacities of both these substations: 10 Mile River has a capacity of 16.7 megawatts. Dover Plains, a smaller substation, you're looking at 6.3 megawatts. A conservative ratio for these types of projects is 7 acres per megawatt. So assuming that we maxed out all of the capacity on both of these substations in the town of Dover, you're looking at 161 acres roughly total, which amounts to 0.4% of the total acreage of the town. Now there is already a project that's been constructed, so I think that's 2 megawatts just about, possibly a bit more. So some of that, it's already lower what is remaining. As mentioned, utility scale projects, Dover is a hilly town. There really isn't a lot of flat open ground for a large project. These projects, community scale projects, do serve local demand, goes right onto the grid and is consumed locally. So it's not being put on a transmission line and exported to another location. Next slide. So the key provisions that we identified in the current draft that we reviewed are as follows. The most impactful that we see here. So the parcel on which large-scale community solar energy systems is sited shall be a minimum of 50 acres. So that eliminates a lot of smaller parcels which may be better suited for this type of project. We typically need a minimum of 15 acres for a project to be viable. Next is large-scale community solar energy systems shall be set back at least 300 feet from all property lines, which does again hit smaller parcels harder. No component of any community solar energy system may be located within 150 feet of any roadway. No more than 35% of the parcel shall be occupied by the entirety of any community solar energy system. Clearing of additional lands to accommodate community solar energy system may be permitted, provided the percentage of newly cleared land on any solar lot does not exceed 50% of existing woodlands on that solar lot in total. Removal of existing trees larger than 6 inches DBH should be minimized to the greatest extent practicable. Lastly, lands which have the highest ecological values as evidenced by large contiguous areas of forest, undisturbed drainage areas, wetlands, or New York State DEC conservation identified critical habitats or rare plant and animal populations shall be avoided. So a lot of those later things we're looking at anyways, but really it's the key things. Lot size, setbacks, lot coverage are the most impactful here. Next slide. So looking at these, this map of the parcels on the following slides, we're going to eliminate the ones that did not comply with various points of the drafted solar law, followed by other considerations that are outlined in the law. So next slide, starting with the 50-acre minimum. So right now, we're down to 150 parcels right away that are greater than 50 acres. Next slide. So this is parcels no more than 35%. So all parcels that are 50 acres or greater do have, if you apply 35%, 15 usable acres needed. However, that would affect the maximum cap of 5 megawatts. So if a project couldn't be, the footprint of a project would exceed that 35% to hit the 5 megawatts, that would really curtail the system size. Next slide. So here we're looking at 300-foot setback. So all those 50-foot parcels are now shrunk a bit to accommodate the 300-foot setback. That puts us down to 121 parcels. The next slide. Looking at clearing of land should not exceed more than 50% of existing woodlands. So again, this is applying the 15-acre minimum that we need for a project. So it remains the same at 121 parcels. And then lastly, critical environmental areas, which reduces us to 112. And this is just what is currently mapped. Next slide. Yeah, so these are the ones that are mapped. So this is just what's in the law. This is what you'd get if you didn't factor in some of the more environmental constraints that we have to accommodate when designing a project. So moving on to designer or developer considerations. On the next slide, starting with DEC and National Wetlands Inventory wetlands. These are wetlands that are regulated by the state and the federal government. So these are just what's mapped. There are wetlands generally, there are many more wetlands than what appears in publicly available data, but this reduces us down to 107 parcels that are viable. Next, we're looking at undeveloped areas. So within these parcels, we can't put a solar farm on some kind of commercial operation or housing or anything. So that reduces us to 102. Next slide, which is a big one. Slope should be less than 15%. So the racking systems that we use for these projects have a tolerance of 15%. We would need to grade the site down to that, or seek out a site that already has that grade. So this does eliminate a lot of parcels and brings us down to 37 for potential sites. And then the next one is, on the next slide, we can't just build a project anywhere in town. We do need a place to connect to the grid. So those parcels that have direct access to the distribution lines that comply and avoid all environmental constraints reduce us to 11 parcels. So the issue here is when we're seeking out sites, we run campaigns, you identify sites that are suitable, we'll send letters in the mail, try and engage landowners directly. But at the end of the day, someone needs to agree to enter into a partnership with us, either to lease or sell the land so that we can develop the project. So even though there are these viable sites, if none of these 11 landowners are interested, then there's really nowhere you could put these. And I wanted to take a closer look, because even these sites that have potential issues with them or constraints we'd have to navigate around. Next slide. I'll try and go through them quickly. I mean, these are so two of those are right away eliminated. They're protected land. One of them is owned by the United States of America, and the other one is the town of Dover. We would assume that these, this is the, this is a public park on the right. I think that's conservation land on the left. On the next slide, we have, this is one of the parcels that could potentially have a solar project, the Hiram parcel. It's usable 48 acres, limitations, there's 28 acres of tree clearing. The rest of the site is classified as prime farmland. Next slide. Another one owned by the same landowner, again, 38 usable acres. There'd be some tree clearing and again, prime farmland and wetlands that we'd have to navigate around. Next slide. And again, this is another parcel that would be viable, 45 usable acres. Limitations again are mapped wetlands, and probably more than what appears on the map there. Visibility from the road and slope, the southern part of the site is too steep. Next slide. It's another viable parcel, 121 usable acres. We do have DEC wetlands that we have to contend with, some tree clearing on the eastern side, topography issues, and then again, prime farmland. Next slide. So this one, this is currently being used for something else, not quite vacant, but this is, I think, right off 22. And this is 37.5 potentially usable acres, high visibility from the road, and it is oddly classified as a prime farmland. This is another one of the potentially viable sites. This is got 44.7 usable acres, but there you can see there's wetland networks throughout the site. It's quite fragmented, and it is being used for another purpose at the moment. This really wouldn't be a viable site due to fragmentation. You can move on to the next slide. Another potential site here, 22.7 usable acres, but you do have the DEC wetland. Everything outside of that is other potentially wetlands by DEC. And it's also developed the site's being used for another purpose. Next slide. I think this is one of the last ones here, 22.1 acres that is almost entirely forested, so we would have to clear that site to make space for a project. It's also close to a densely populated area. Next slide. And then lastly, Wingdale Materials here, 31.8 usable acres. Limitations are wetlands throughout the site, visibility, and then topography in this area. There would be quite a bit of site work that would be needed to build a project. So in conclusion, due to the very limited number of viable locations for solar in Dover, a one-size-fits-all approach to regulating solar farms may have adverse effect of prohibiting it as opposed to enabling it. Current lot size, setback, and lot coverage requirements are most impactful in eliminating potentially suitable sites that may be in the 30 to 50 acre range. And then just a point in general, community scale solar projects must be near distribution level demand, which is typically residences, neighborhoods, commercial areas, and municipal buildings. Trying to site these further away from those, would put them too far away from those lines, and you wouldn't be able to connect them reasonably. So our recommendation would be reducing the lot size and lot coverage requirements to allow for more viable sites to be considered that may be smaller than 50 acres. Granting the planning board discretion to determine setback requirements on a case-by-case basis will also allow for smaller sites with limited visibility to be considered. I think the logic behind setbacks is that you want to separate the project from neighboring residences or commercial operations or the roadside. But there may be smaller sites that already have existing vegetative buffers where they're not visible, or where there could be one planted, or they may be situated in an area with low visibility. So I think evaluating these kind of a case-by-case basis would allow for more sites to have a shot at this. So that's the presentation. As I mentioned, at 15 minutes here, I'll just conclude in saying we do have a dog in this fight. so to speak. We have an application. We believe it's a very good location, all things considered, especially compared to some of the other ones that we presented that would comply. So we would encourage you to consider these points. It's just our perspective on it. And for those of you who haven't checked out the application, I think it would be helpful to see what that kind of proposal looks like with reduced setbacks and proposed vegetative screening. So
We'll take your thoughts and your recommendations back to the committee as well as the board, and we'll let them review it, think about it, and that's where we're at. But we're still going to be open for comments, and
absolutely.
Secretary was actually here tonight, so she heard and saw your presentation. She can bring it back.
Okay, great. And
We'll go from there.
yeah, any questions on this? I'm more than happy to follow up.
Go back a couple slides. The land usage numbers.
In the very beginning?
No, towards the end where it said land available use or whatever it was saying, the numbers. Just go to one of those. Just go to one of those. Yep, just one of them. Where it says usable acres 45.5. Now, is that what you feel is usable there, or is that usable within what is being proposed?
That is usable within what is being proposed and
Okay.
The additional considerations that aren't included in the law that we have to
Okay.
deal with.
I
So,
just wanted to clarify that for me.
right, yeah, what we were showing here is just the eligible candidates that, where you could cite a project, and some of the potential challenges even with those.
Because I believe, I'd have to go back and read, but it's 35% of 50 acres, right? Is that what we wrote?
So 35% of, it would be 35% of the lot, so if it's larger than that, it would allow for a larger footprint of the project.
But
I
a
think
minimum of 50 acres. It could be 50 or larger.
it could be 50 or larger, the minimum lot size is 50, correct,
Okay.
yeah.
I know I read it. I read it, but I just want to make sure I'm reading it right.
Yeah.
Right. I know I wanted to see where you were at, is what I'm asking. Okay,
Right,
thank you.
yeah.
I'm good. Anybody else?
I just want to be clear that the community solar program is a nationwide program, right? That's, is it more or less directed that where the community solar projects are, they benefit the communities that they're in?
It's a New York program.
It's a New York
It's a
program.
New York program, and they're smaller projects that connect to the distribution networks and produce energy locally, and it's consumed locally. So there are other benefits. I mean, that's a benefit if for those who would like to see more renewable energy projects locally and benefit from that in that
Sure.
way. There's also a pilot agreement, payment in lieu of taxes, since these projects don't pay taxes for the first 15 years per New York state law. So there's a pilot in place of that as a substitute. There also host community agreements, which are added benefits established between the developer and the town as part of the process, and that would all be worked out. So there are those benefits. Additionally, residents can subscribe to the projects and receive a small reduction, I think of up to 10% on their electricity bill. So
Right, like through an ESCO or the supplier.
right, yeah. But I know that one of the comments from the last meeting was a concern that all the power would be transported elsewhere and no one would benefit. In this case, it's going on these networks and being consumed locally.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Jay?
No comments at this time.
Susan?
No questions.
Andrew?
I understand the presentation and how you're trying to make the case where we're kind of starting at 3,000 parcels or so and working down to, well, you say 11, but, considering some of these parcels are hay farmers supplying all of Dutchess and the whole east side here with hay and stuff of that nature, we're probably just talking, a very few parcels that actually would fit this. So I understand it, and thank you for your presentation.
Council, anything?
Good.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marilyn, would you just give the information to Richie where he can see the presentation? once it's set, once it's downloaded? Yep. Okay, thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak at the public hearing, please approach the podium.
I want to add from my earlier comments that I really appreciate the thought and effort that's been gone into this solar law. I did review the first draft and, thought it had a lot of merit to it, and am looking forward to see the changes that were proposed. I'm wondering if I can ask this gentleman a question. Is that possible?
Sure.
How many homes, how many families or homes will a community solar project feed?
That's, that
He's
question.
got to go to the microphone to answer it.
Sure. Yeah, that, it depends on how you look at it, but I believe it's, on a per megawatt basis, it's somewhere between 200 and 300 homes. So multiply that for the project, for a full-size project of 5 megawatts. It's a sizable chunk of the town.
But that's the capacity of the power that it puts into the grid, but the grid distributes
Correct.
to the residences. It just isn't focuses on those 200 or 300.
Right, and the actual output is going to fluctuate throughout the day. So it's, when it's at peak, peak production, that's the maximum.
And is it available only to homes nearby the distribution point?
So correct. For example, the existing project in town, if you lived in the northern part of Dover and you were connecting to where you're drawing power from the Dover Plains network, you wouldn't be utilizing that power. It would be just the southern part of town.
And are you anticipating, if you do get approved, battery backup? Or what do you do with extended non-sunny period?
So the project that we're proposing is not paired with energy storage. It's possible to retrofit these projects in the future so that you have a more level distribution for 24 hours. But this one is not. It would just generate during the day and be off at night.
So you're still on the grid, getting from the power company for those times you're not generating electricity?
You are anyway.
Well, it's still.
You are anyway.
Yeah.
What's that?
You are anyway.
Yeah,
It's being put into the grid, and the grid is supplying. They're not supplying directly.
I see.
They're not supplying to the grid.
I see, okay. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anybody else looking to approach the podium? All right. Seeing nobody else approaching the podium, Tommy just moved to keep this open until the next meeting.
Yes.
At this time, I move to keep the public hearing open until the next meeting, which is September 27th. But along with that, I would also say, I think we can move forward in sending this latest draft to county, Tom?
Let's wait until the end of the month.
Yeah. It's up to the board.
I think that we should wait until the end of the month to get the public comment for people to review the second draft.
Right.
Okay. We would forward anyway, but I'm okay with that. We all good with that?
Get them
Yeah.
something complete.
We will receive, do I also need to add that we will receive, or we can receive, comment in writing?
No, the public hearing's open, so
Okay.
there's no need to,
Okay.
it's just kept open for another 2 weeks, and then we'll see where we are in 2 weeks.
All right. So the motion is made. Did I get a second?
Second.
Second, motion made and second to keep the public hearing open until the next date, which is September 27th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Next. We have one resolution to read. And I will be reading the adjustments. Resolution to authorize and approve consent agenda items. Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Dover does hereby approve the following items for consideration and adoption on the September 13th, 2023 Town Board Special Meeting Consent Agenda. Schedule public hearing for public input on the 2024 DC Dutchess County CDBG Program application. Schedule public hearing for 2024 Mill and Cricket Hill Drainage District assessments. Award American Legion Concrete Stairway Construction Project, and authorize budget transfers and budget amendments as prepared and submitted by the town's bookkeeper, and that is what I will be reading. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Dover hereby authorizes the following transfers. 2023 budget from line A, 1680.2.200 to line A, 1680.4.400 of the amount of $10,000. From line A, 1010.4.400 to line A, 1620.2.200 in the amount of $5,000. From line A, 4090.4.400 to line A, 1620.2.200 in the amount of $3,000. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Dover hereby accepts receipt of the following unanticipated revenues and/or authorizes the following budget amendments. Dover Day donations and vendor fees received 8/30/23 through 9/13/23. Increase the revenue account A2705001 by $5,500. Increase the revenue account of A2089002 by $400. And increase expenditure account A7550.4.401 $5,900. Scholarships for summer camp approved 8/1/23. Increase the revenue account A9999000 $570. Increased expenditure account A2915.4.400 $570. Capital project highway equipment and machinery garage receipt of ban. 2022 Increased Revenue Act H155731000 by $256,632.87. Increase expenditure account H15 1440.2.200 of $2,048. Increase expenditure account H15 5132.2.200 $254,584.87. 2023 increased the revenue account H155731 000 of $11,164. Increased expenditure account H15 1440.2.200 $1,914. And increased the expenditure account H15 5132.2.200 $9,250. Dutchess County 22 Municipal Investment Grant awarded 10/1/2022 balance. Increased the revenue account A2706000 of $1,150 and increased the expenditure account A1620.2.200 $1,150. These are adjustments that needed to be made because projects were either completed or accounts needed to be fulfilled due to the projects, plus the donations we received. Got it?
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Brought by Maluta, seconded by Jackson. Any discussion?
Supervisor? Can I suggest that we'll hold the public hearing on CDBG program application ideas for October 11th?
Okay.
Can I suggest that the public hearing on the Mill and Cricket Hill drainage districts take place on October 25th? Or would you rather have that on the 11th?
I think the 25th is better because
It gives them more time.
we have to post the numbers for those people to review.
All right, excellent. And to fill in the construction project, we vetted Nature Works, the lowest bidder on that project, came in at $47,630 within our project budget.
Okay.
We met with the principal down there, and we'd like to recommend that vendor. So are all those okay?
Everybody good?
No issue.
It's fine.
The dates of October 11th and October 25th.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? Hearing the dates and the information on the bid during the discussion period. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? So carried. At this point in time, are there any other public comments on questions, statements, or anything else you'd like to know? Please approach the podium. Seeing nobody approaching the podium, upcoming meetings, as you've heard some of them tonight already, Wednesday, September 27th, that will be a regular board meeting. Wednesday, October 11th will be labeled as an October 11th, will be a special board meeting. Wednesday, October 25th is a regular board meetings. Both of the last two meeting dates I gave you, they are actually all three have public hearings scheduled for them, 27th, 11th, and 25th. And I believe the 27th is also my date to present to the clerk, who will then present to the board members the budget, which we've been working diligently the last 2 or 3 days on with department heads. And we're going into it full steam ahead. So other than that, anybody else? Councilwoman Jackson, got anything?
No.
Luda?
Dover Day, Saturday.
Dover Day is Saturday. Dover Day is Saturday. Parade 11:30. Mr. Murphy?
All good, look forward to it.
All good? And I have nothing. So at this point in time, I'd like to make the motion that we go into an executive session. I have some litigation and personnel issues to discuss with the board members, and we will not be returning to the dais. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded by myself and Deputy House to move into an executive session for litigation and personnel issues and not return to the dais. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Thank you, everybody.